record this before we get started. All right. Okay, so I hit the record button. All right, let's begin with this regular Oscoda Township meeting on February 8th, 2021. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:04. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
All right.
Okay, please stand. So I'm going to say it, but I will go ahead and start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, we'll start with roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings.
Here.
Ms. McGuire.
Here.
Mr. Spencer.
Present.
Mr. Palmer.
Here.
Mr. Sutton here. Mr. Worcesterbarth.
Present.
Ms. Richards.
Here. Okay, sorry, I was just sharing the share screen. It should be the meeting now. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, do we have any agenda additions this evening?
I guess I have a question. We had a couple postponed items that I went through my notes after the work session, and I sent Mitch an email on Saturday morning concerning the Skeel Street properties. I haven't got a response back from Mitch about adding those before the 18-hour time limit.
I did get an email about those items, Mr. Woosterbarth. You might check check your. Yeah, I think he sent it out just a little bit ago.
Just a few minutes ago, or not minutes, but just prior to the meeting. So.
Okay, well, I've been checking all day, so.
Okay,
yep.
It was just a little while ago. So you want to go ahead and add that one, Mitch? Or you want me to add that? Oh, is he muted? Guessing because there's no response that he must be muted.
There.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Just pound on the wall next time. All right.
Okay. Yeah, the one item that would be from a prior, it was titled on January 11th, Method to Selling Township Property. If we could add that as number 10.
Okay, under superintendent's report.
Yes.
Method to sell.
Method to selling township property.
Okay. Okay, just that one then?
Yeah, that was the only one that was I looked back and we did not have any prior action item that involves Skeel itself.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Yes, we did.
What date was that?
November 9th.
November 9th. Okay, okay.
And we were presented with a purchase agreement. We countered that purchase agreement, and we've been waiting to hear back on that counter.
Well, that's before my time. Okay. Did you, at that time, did you postpone it?
No, we made a counter offer.
You made a counter offer. Okay.
Yeah, that was supposed to be presented, and we were waiting to hear back from ADT or ATD.
Todd actually has a comment on that.
Yeah, Bill, you're right. We did make a counter, and I don't have dates in front of me, but then ATD resubmitted an offer, would have been sometime, I think in December, along with the offer we got from Aragona Real Estate. So that gives us basically two pending letters of interest or letters of intent, if you will, in our queue. And we talked about both of those briefly at the closed session. And we have not really done anything with them since. That's my recollection of the current situation.
They have not officially come out of that.
So there was not a response to our counter offer. Todd, is that what you're saying?
Well, it was a response. It was the same offer as previous, but basically it was a response.
I'm going to caution you all that what took place in a closed session, you can't talk about here unless you create an action item out here to discuss or take action upon.
So that is the action item that you are suggesting as not number 10, method to sell township
No,
properties.
that's a totally separate item. That was an item that was strictly postponed.
Okay,
Let me ask a question. Is it not, it's inappropriate if we have purchase agreements or LOIs for purchase of property from the township to be in closed session, it needs to be an open session. Is that not correct?
Now you're getting into legal questions, and I'm not an attorney. So I'm saying to you that to talk about anything that was brought up in a closed session, you need to create an agenda item in open session to actively talk about them or decide upon them.
so if we would like to discuss skill, then we need to make an additional
That would be correct.
item, which would be number 11.
That would be correct.
Is that what the board wants to do?
I believe we need to act on them.
Okay, I'm sorry, was
Either
that
way.
you, Steve? Was that Steve?
That was me. Yep, per my
Okay.
email Saturday morning to Mitch.
Okay, I'm not seeing the email. I don't know,
No,
but
I
I
didn't,
will,
I'm not sending everything to the board. I'm just sending it to Mitch so we don't get into a quorum issue. So I
No
want
problem.
everything out in the open.
right. Just, generally, when it comes to agenda items, it would be between the superintendent and the supervisor, but that's fine. So we want to do skill number 7. I'm sorry, number 11. Skill like LOIs.
That would be fine.
All right, so we have 2, number 10 and number 11. Did you get those, Josh?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the agenda with the additions?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Westerbarth, a second by Mr. Spencer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Okay, now moving on to the consent agenda. We have a few things under there. We have the regular meeting minutes, January 11th. Do you have any comments on that? That doesn't sound like it, or either that or I've muted everybody and they can't talk. Then we have work session meeting minutes from January 22nd. Any discussion or comments there? Okay, and then we have January meeting minutes of, I'm sorry, regular meeting minutes from January 25th. Do we have any comments there? I believe that Josh emailed out
Yes.
some updated minutes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, did everybody get those?
I didn't get them. I had to look online for them.
Okay. And did the, what you were able to?
I did not get them either.
Okay. All right, so I think what we discussed at the work session on Friday was that if we found any suggested changes, that Josh would make those changes and then get those to the board. So, I mean, I guess, Josh, we need to make sure when we email them out, maybe the board, we get them to the board all individually and then upload them for the public as well at the same time. So, or however it works so that we're making sure that the board gets them. So,
And the clerk can send the minutes out without violating a quorum. That's the way we did it in the past. If I remember correctly, that's not an issue. So it doesn't need to be individual emails. We just can't respond,
right,
reply
right.
all and debate it.
Yep.
That's all. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
The updated minutes are in the board packet online.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I found them there to be able to review them, but maybe we can put amended there so that people realize that they were changed before we approve them.
I agree with that.
So that they know that the changes were made,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and maybe highlight them. I think John used to highlight them so you would know what was changed in case people from the public that are zooming in wanted to see what was changed, that they, from the work session or whenever we put the request in.
That makes sense. All right.
Just a thought.
Yep. Okay. All right. So everything looked good then does everything look good then on the January 25th meeting minutes then? All right. Then under finance, we have a couple things. We have payment of bills. We have a total of 132,795.73, a prepaid run on February 2nd in the amount of 17,931.98. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I mentioned this Friday. There's on page 19 of the packet, under superintendent and under clerk, there are two different expenditures that are identical. And I think we understood what they were, but just to point out that it makes it appear that we're paying the same bill twice. And I think Jamie, you said Friday you would check on that and see if there was something a different way we could enter those or something.
Yeah, it's going to have to be entered in under the description in the PO module. So whoever's entering the bills, the department heads will have, we're going to compile a little email just so people understand what you're looking for when for descriptions.
Okay, and just so everybody recalls, this is for the notary bonds for Josh Sutton and for Tammy Klein. And you have that listed both under the superintendent and then again under the clerk department. That was what we discussed Friday.
Okay, any other comments on that February 2nd run or questions?
Yeah, I did have just one more question. I'm sorry. I actually, I have not reached out to Jamie to ask this question, so this is not on her. It's on me. Is the F&V invoice for the 25,000? Is that the normal amount that we pay, or does it fluctuate? I don't recall.
Let me look and see if I can find that out for you.
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking is that in the report that follows with the invoice, it talks about a few different calls, I guess we call it, that they had to make in order to handle a water main break on F41. And I only wanted to flag this and say that that water main break was done as a result, or created as a result of construction, not as a result of our system needing maintenance. And I didn't know whether or not this was going to be referred back to anybody who was the ones doing the construction, or what that may be. I just wanted to ask that question.
Tim, are you referring the F&V payment under sewer and water for the 25,808.91?
I am, and along with the report that's on page 83.
Well, that's the normal monthly payment for them under our contract.
And that's fine. And then under the report, that's the question that I was asking, was it the same? And then under the distribution system, there's a report that says January 12th, said that they responded to a water main break on F41. And that's the one that I'm asking whether or not we were charged for that extra work, that call.
What page is it on? I'm sorry, Tim.
No problem. It's on page 83 of the pack. It's, let's see, it's the HUSRA, oh, I'm sorry, the HUSRA monthly operations report. That's right. Or I guess we call it SRUA. So anyway, how to pronounce an acronym.
Page 83 under revenue and expense report.
No. It was the report that was that apparently goes with. It's from Catherine Wynn, and it supports the invoice or the amount said from January 28th.
I am
Am
not.
I seeing that?
I guess I'm not
finding
seeing
that.
that, but there was actually I think the situation that you're talking about on F41 where
Uh-huh.
service line was lifted and pulled out and pulled into the main. The contractor is being billed for that.
That's correct.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
got
were,
it. Thank you very much.
I isolated that cost. I don't know if that's the right word, but anyways, they identified that
Yeah,
cost.
Sure.
And we actually have an invoice that is going to the contractor that was hired to do that work.
How much
Got it.
water
Thank you.
did,
That's what I was looking for.
sorry, Tim.
Mhm.
No. Go ahead. Thank you. I was just acknowledging. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just wondering how much water actually got spilled out of that main. Did they calculate that all up as well?
I don't think, I mean, you'd have to.
They have, I don't know that right off the top of my head, but
Right.
yes, they have. And they figured that out. So,
All right, on. Is that on the bill for the contractor as well?
that'll be a subsequent bill to them.
Okay.
It took them a while to calculate that.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
They knew it because they got an alarm from the water tower on the base that it was nearly empty.
That's
So
500,000 gallons.
That's a lot of water.
A lot of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it happens.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank goodness not
Thank you
this
very
week.
much.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yes, I
Right.
appreciate
Oh,
it. Sorry for the interruption, but
Oh,
thanks
that's
for the
okay.
clarification, Jamie.
that's all right. Any other questions on the February 9th run? Check
Just
run?
looking at this. So we pay F&V $25,808.91 for sewer, and then an additional $25,808.92 for water.
Correct. It's split between water and sewer. So the total bill is 51,617.83.
Cool.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Is there a second?
Support.
All right. There's a motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Mr. Westerbarth, I believe.
No, that was me. So sorry.
Bill, dang, you guys you're too quiet when you talk. It's hard to understand. So I'm sorry, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. Okay, we're on to subcommittee reports and project updates as available. Are we, Mitch, having anybody, either Todd or Roe speak? I see two people from Roe. Are they talking just at agenda items or are they discussing something here?
I know we'll talk about the SCADA system when that comes up.
Okay, I can, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I could just quickly ask him, I guess. If
Sure.
Yeah, or unmute him, and then I guess, Todd, if you wanted anything here, if you want to raise your hand, I'll click on you. Where'd Rick go? There he is. Hey, Rick.
Hello.
Sorry to put you on the spot. I didn't know. You're gonna do your, I know there's two of you on the line. You're just gonna talk when we get to the agenda items?
Yeah, we're only on tonight for number 8, the SCADA integrator. If there's any questions by the board or Mitch when that comes up.
Okay.
Our regular report is always at the second board meeting of the month.
Right. That's what I thought, but didn't want to cut you out.
No, not a problem.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Hmm.
Okay, then we are on to the superintendent's report.
And
Yes,
if I, this is Bill, if I might just give a quick update on the IET, from the IET committee
sure, go ahead.
on the bike path. We had a meeting last Thursday. We are in talks with the Forest Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They are asking for a plan of the entire bike path, which will include phases 5, 7, 4, which Oscoda is just beginning to do funding on, but they want to do it just one time. So what we indicated to them is that we do have a tentative path of where the bike path will be going, all the way from Hale up through Oscoda and down US 23 for the southern boundary of Oscoda. And they're willing to accept the idea that what we have is will probably be within 5 to 6 feet of what the actual path will be, and they've said that is fine. The other issue that we have to address, and we're going to have an executive committee meeting this coming Thursday. They also want us to have plans in place for the long-term maintenance and upkeep of the path. So we have to determine who's going to accept responsibility for that. And we were discussing, hopefully it could be the County Parks and Rec Committee or the IET organization itself. The U.S. Forest Service is fine as long as we have a name on a paper that designates who is going to be responsible for that long term. The other point I wanted to make is that Oscoda is aggressively working on phase 4, which will take the bike path. It will end right in front of their new township hall, and it will go 4.8 miles south. And the total cost of that is going to be $2,778,000. They are putting in for TAP grants for the majority of that amount, and they're also working on grants for the matching portions that they will have to come up with on that. And that one of the reasons that they have been under pressure with us to get the sewer agreement in place so that they can extend those sewer lines down 23, because once they're done with that, then the bike path will start and it will go over the top of that for a portion of that. So that's some of the things that we're working on the IET committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Palmer, is it appropriate to ask questions about the bike path at this time?
Sure, go ahead.
I just wondered how thick they're making that asphalt when they're pouring it and putting down that path.
I believe it's a 3 or 4 inch asphalt, and that will be virtually all asphalt, other than there's some sort of bridge structures that go over some areas that are kind of low and have water standing in them on a regular basis. That won't be asphalt. That'll be a wooden pier walkway type of a thing.
Okay.
As opposed to our phase 3 bike path, which we've been discussing. That's the part that goes from the school, hopefully out to Old Orchard Park. That will primarily be a crushed gravel because it's such a much more distance. It's 3 times this, or no, twice this distance, and for almost half the cost. So that crushed gravel works real well for these paths and other areas. We've seen it. So the maintenance on it and upkeep is much less, and the cost is much less. But the path, as you see, phase 1 that goes from Oscoda out to the school is all asphalt, and then phase 4, which goes down 23, will be asphalt as well.
Cool.
All right, thank you. Okay, so moving on to the superintendent's report then. Mitch, we have the first item, the LOI on the Huron Shores Artisan Hall.
Okay, so you have in the packet the first, well, actually, it's an updated LOI from Friedman. I see they corrected like the earnest money deposit issue and cleaned up a couple other things. But Todd Dickerson also received late last week an email about another intention to submit another offer on the Artisan Hall as well, in the amount of $200,000.
Do we have a letter of intent from them yet?
No, we all the, unless Todd has got something else, all we have is an email from two interested, a couple who is an interested party.
So no official documentation, just an email expressing interest?
Well, no, I would call it a letter of intent. I mean, again, without having more formal processes laid out from our perspective as to what constitutes, you know, an LOI or a purchase agreement, or, you know, what we're considering an offer. I don't think this email is any less than some of the other LOIs that we are currently considering.
If we accepted that that offer in the email today, would it be legally binding?
Well, I'm not an attorney, so tough for me to answer that.
In your experience, do you think that just an email like that would be legally binding, as opposed to the letter of intent that we have from Mr. Eiler?
Well, you have a written expressed offer to purchase, and if you responded in writing with some level of acceptance, I mean, in theory, under the law, I've heard it say that, you know, verbally you can enter into a contract
True.
without a handshake. So
I guess I'm just kind of kicking this around because, I mean, it's kind of the 11th hour, and we kind of owe Vinny you know, I mean, he's been asking for this for months now, so.
For a response, correct.
Yeah.
And also, I guess I would just point out, I guess maybe if you could mention, Todd, the reason why the offer was submitted through you.
yeah, I mean, yeah, not making it any less credible.
Right.
We've had a few hiccups, some house cleaning, if you will, that has been needed with Friedman. They got kind of off to a little bit of a bumpy start. In that, when they submitted the listing agreement to us, it kind of slipped through the cracks that they had an end date of December 31st of 2020 for their listing. So all parties signed it, including themselves. Really should have been, you know, a December 31st, 2021 end date to their listing. So, you know, legally, right now, we aren't under a listing contract with Friedman, although Vinny's offer was submitted during their time of listing, so we would have to honor that offer through Friedman. This offer, however, was put before us outside of the listing agreement. So this offer would not include Friedman per se.
Which basically means that the township doesn't have a real estate agent to handle the transaction for the second offer this time.
Yeah, the transaction would go outside of Friedman.
Right.
Well, it seems to me that, you know, anybody that's done any purchase agreements or bought and sold property, when you receive a purchase agreement, you have three options. You can refuse it, you can accept it, or you can counter it. I would think, you know, we've sort of put Mr. Eiler's offer off to the side here for a while. I think we should respond to his offer. And given the situation, I would think a reasonable move would be to counter his offer at a rate of 200,000.
I have a question here, though. Is two questions. One, is the interim attorney on with us tonight? I
don't know.
Was told that they were on.
Yes, I saw them log in.
So I would have a question that, you know, I purchased a lot of real estate and sold a lot of real estate in my lifetime, and the only thing that constitutes an offer is a signature on either a purchase agreement or an LOI. And I might add that Mr. Ayer's LOI is signed. So I guess I'd like to hear if we truly do have an offer that's valid and has any legal status within the state of Michigan for purchase of property from the second one.
Okay. Let me see if I can find them.
Matt Wojah.
All right, Matt,
Hi, everybody.
not to put you on the spot or anything.
So let me preface this by saying I have not had a chance to see this, and so I don't know what the language is. Anytime you're entering into a contract for the sale of real property, it has to be in writing. That's pursuant to the statute of frauds. Certainly a signature is important in those sorts of situations. I know they do a lot of real estate closings electronically now, but they provide for an e-signature. But as far as whether that's an offer or not, it would depend in large part upon the language within the email. Is it specific enough, or is it merely an invitation for offers or an invitation to discuss offering or counter offering the property? I know that's not a great answer, but that's the best I can give you right now.
Well, I mean, obviously we can send the document, to you, and I'm not, gonna still, I mean, I'm not gonna read it to you now and have you make an off the cuff thing.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I'd be happy to review it and give an opinion on it. So, but right now that's the best I can do in terms of giving any sort of feedback on that issue.
Right.
It doesn't sound rock solid to me, and I agree with Mr. Palmer. I move that we counter Mr. Eiler's offer with 200,000.
Support.
Okay. So there is a motion by Mr. Spencer, right? Because it
Yep.
kind of got reversed there. I was just trying to get it. Okay, so there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Palmer
Yes.
to counter at 200.
Correct.
Okay, and is that not looking at all at the other offer?
We don't have a signature on the other offer. We owe Vinny a response. That's where I'm at right now. And if Vinny decides to decline it at that time, well, then we can entertain other offers. And I'm sure that will come about should that be the case. But at this time, Mr. Eiler has been waiting for months to get a response from us. He has assigned a letter of intent on the meeting agenda right now, and thus the motion.
Okay, I mean, I hear wanting to respond to Mr. Eiler. I think that we've strung it out too long. That being said, I would like our interim attorney to read the offer that we got to see if they think it's an offer. I'm not calling it a purchase agreement. I'm calling it an offer. So my thought would be actually to, and I don't want to use the word postpone.
I think we can. We have a motion and it's been seconded.
Right. Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wurstbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
No.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, no, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
No. Motion carried. Okay, moving on, Oscoda sewer contract. Mitch?
Okay. Again, our legal counsel's been able to examine the most recent revisions to the contract. They examined the request for additional language by Oscoda Township in conjunction with USDA, and even had an opportunity to discuss with Oscoda's legal counsel. The document's been re-revised to reflect the changes that have been discussed between the two township attorneys. My recommendation would be if the board would consider adoption of the agreement with the proper dates and the proper gallonage rate, which is $10.72, into the document prior to signing.
Okay, is there any discussion or questions? Or do we have a motion?
I might add that we also need to add a base year in paragraph 4. And in paragraph 14, an advance notice provision of intent to terminate the agreement. I had recommended in my memo using 2020 as the base year. That is consistent with what was in the previous agreement. As far as the amount of advance written notice, that's the board's pleasure.
The advance written notice for, I'm sorry, what, Matt?
It's paragraph 14 of the agreement. Oscoda has to provide Oscoda with blank days advance written notice to Oscoda of its intention to terminate this agreement.
And that wasn't, that's an additional that's new language. That wasn't.
Yeah, that's related to USDA's situation. So paragraph 14 talks about the term of the agreement, which is not a new concept, obviously.
Right. It was a 3 or a 5.
Right. But the contract can't terminate before the repayment period that Oscoda has with the USDA. That's something that the USDA requires. And so if for example, they, well, I'll just read the language here. And I've skipped the first sentence here. Notwithstanding the foregoing, this agreement shall not expire earlier than the repayment period of any outstanding United States Department of Agriculture loan made to Oscoda, unless Oscoda constructs its own wastewater treatment plant for the treatment of sanitary sewage originating within Oscoda's boundaries, or the United States Department of Agriculture permits Oscoda to terminate this agreement earlier than the repayment period of any outstanding United States Department of Agriculture loan made to Oscoda, and Oscoda provides Oscoda with blank days advance written notice to Oscoda of its intention to terminate this agreement. So let's say they build their own wastewater treatment facility and they don't need to use ours anymore. How much written notice would you be comfortable with if they were going to terminate the agreement because it was no longer necessary? That's really the question there.
Couple of years. No, I'm just kidding.
I agree.
We're not going to allow it. We'll just put that in there. No.
What's the standard?
Yeah, Jinx.
I would say 90 days or 6 months, given the fact that this is a long-standing agreement. And the reality is, if they construct a wastewater treatment facility, you're going to know about it well before it's finished.
For sure. Yeah.
So
our head isn't that much in the sand, right?
Right.
I don't know. I would say 90 days personally, but
okay. That seems sensible to me.
Yeah. I don't know what anybody else's thought.
I agree. 90 days should be sufficient.
It's not like it's going to make a big change in our operation and our sewer. It's just going to be less coming into our system. So it's not like we'd have to make special arrangements for that.
Yeah, I think the only thing I could think of is that with the additional sewer that they're talking about adding in Oscoda, they said that the additional water that flows through there is actually going to help us or help the sewage move along down the pipe a little better. So if we had that 90 days, before the cutoff, there might be a need to add some water to that pumping plant to keep keep the sludge moving. I've heard I think Mr. Mitchell was talking about that at one of the previous meetings.
And it would also affect rate structure.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so with those couple additions, are we ready to? Somebody want to make a motion to accept?
Yeah, I will, this is Bill. I will make a motion to approve the proposed 3-year contract with the proper dates and rate as discussed, and authorize the township clerk and supervisor to execute all required documents with the dates, with the baseline being 2020, and the dates for notice of withdrawing as 90 days.
Okay, is there a second or support?
I'll second that.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer and support by Mr. Spencer. Do we have roll call, please?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. The next down is the boiler pump purchase for Ani Medical.
You have the information in your packet. We would recommend the board will make a motion to purchase the boiler pump through Goyette Mechanical at a cost of $9,600.
Okay, any discussion? I just actually would make one point here. I wanted to thank, Design Industrial over the years has helped with that building, just giving us some free advice here and there. In regard to, the system is just kind of a crazy one. So appreciate them providing the information on this. They really have kind of gotten out of the heating business. They're more into just plumbing. So I don't think it killed them to not get the bid, the job award, because it was about a $523 difference. That being said, thank you, Chuck, for your assistance in the process to date. So.
And just to mention, we have used them in the past. They were the ones that actually put in the rinse station out at Ratliff Park.
Yep.
At the bathhouse there, and did a really nice job on that for us at a very reasonable price. So.
Right, and they did work with the VA when the VA moved as well. So again, we appreciate, he's a community team player that, doesn't charge for a lot of the advice that he gives. So we appreciate that very much. So I'm sorry, I rambled. Now I forgot. Was there a motion? Or did
I'll make a motion that we approve the bid from Goyette for the $9,600.
Okay, and is support?
Support.
Okay, we have a motion from Ms. McGuire, support from Mr. Westerbarth. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. All right, next on is the interim attorney retainer.
You have in your packet the retainer agreement, and I would recommend the board make a motion to approve the interim attorney retainer document as presented.
Okay, is there any discussion or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the interim attorney retainer document as presented.
support,
Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Palmer and support by Mr. Sutton. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Next on is the Patriot Appreciation Flag request. No, if
So you have in your packet information about that request. Board member Sutton.
oh, sorry, patriotic, not patriot.
The cost for what he's requesting would be $799. And like I said, the only, I think we discussed in the work session, it sounds like both he and I are that it will follow the US flag code. Again, Mr. Sutton, do you want to talk about it specifically at this time?
just to reiterate, that the flag just does have the blue, red, and green line to support both our police, our volunteer firefighters, and our retired and active military. And I just presented this with being a former Air Force town. We have a lot of retirees. We depend heavily on our police and our volunteer firefighters. And I think $7.99 is a small expense to pay homage to all the things they do for us throughout the year.
Well, I move that we purchase said flag.
Okay, is there any support?
Support.
All right, motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Westerberg. Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. All right, next on is the Friedman listing of the Ani Medical Building.
So this building has not been listed with Friedman previously as per the board's direction. In light of the fact that our main tenant is working on a new structure and will continue costs to operate and maintain the structure, see what we just did a couple of actions ago. It would be prudent now to list the structure with Friedman to be able to sell the structure. Friedman has the ability to advertise and reach potential buyers that are well outside of Michigan, and that would be a great advantage to us. We just don't have that ability to reach those type of potential buyers. So the board has to decide, would it enter into an agreement with Friedman to do just that? If so, then we will contact Friedman and start building in conjunction with our legal counsel. We'll start building an agreement to that effect.
Okay, any discussion?
I believe there was discussion on this at the work session, and we were talking about whether or not we should list it in just on a standard listing, or if we should look at maybe doing an auction style listing. Have we gotten any more information on that, or are we still considering the auction style, or are we just going to list it for a while and then maybe try the auction if it doesn't sell? What are we doing here?
I did unmute Todd, I believe.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay,
Yeah, so my thinking is this is sort of, I'm asking for a two-step approach in your decisions, because it would require us to go out and gather, more information from Friedman, specifically how does this auction platform work? What are the, the fees associated with it? There's a lot of information I think the board would want to have before you decided traditional listing versus auction platform. But I didn't want to have to go through all of that until you guys made a decision of, yeah, we definitely want to aggressively sell this, or we'd rather not at this point. We're gonna, just slow play it and see what happens with the spaceport.
well, as I mentioned, I was with Todd and we went to the Ani Medical Building and met with Friedman, and, oh, sorry, I'm just gonna, somebody was muted. They talked about the two different methods, and it did sound like they were pretty excited about the auction possibility. So I think it'd be interesting to see what they come back with, so really, like Todd said, at this time, we're basically just indicating we'd like to pursue Friedman for the listing, which, I mean, in theory, the EIC, not in theory, they did. The EIC went out to bid in the summer for both properties, but they decided to just list the Artisan Hall and not the Ani Medical Building. So.
I mean, me personally, I think that the as much money as we've been putting into it, just with as Mitch pointed out a couple of motions ago, to fix the boiler pump and all that fun stuff, it would probably be in our best interest to go ahead and get that sucker listed. I mean, if we're serious about selling it, then we need to list it. And then at Mr. Dickerson's request, we can get it listed and discuss whether or not it's going to be auction or standard at a later time, I guess.
Well, they'll present that information just so we know what we're signing up for, because they talked about a lot of stuff with the auction. In fact, like I said, doing a baseline assessment, all of that, and the company would cover the cost. But my question was, if we don't sell, will we be liable for that cost of the baseline assessment? Those are all things that we need to know before we sign anything. And, you know, any kind of commission charges or percentages or whatever the breakdown is. So,
Right.
so really right now we're just authorizing Todd to open the door back up with them for a formal proposal.
Do we need a motion to open that door?
Yes, I would say so.
Well, then I so move.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer and support by Ms. McGuire. Do we have a roll call, please? Or can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cummings,
Oh, did I?
It's on mute.
Oh,
And
there you go.
it's yes, thank you very much.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Worcester,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Okay, next on is the bathhouse improvements, OOP.
Okay, you have in your packet a memo from Al recommending purchase from Tomark, needed materials at a cost of $4,544.68. He did give me some information. They are commercial tanks. They are 2 40-gallon water tanks. I'm reading this right off of what he gave me. As we have in other bathhouse and other, it is very suitable to provide hot water to our campers. We are taking out the 2 on-demand water heaters that we have in there now and replacing them with tank heaters, which we have found to be more cost-effective and more reliable. On the on-demand heaters, we have now they have now proven to be more trouble than they're worth, and they break down constantly. He speculates that it's due to the hard water in the park, which doesn't help much, and they need to be continually reset. And usually when the demand is highest, which is they tend to, that's when they fail. So
Of course that's when it fails. Of course it is.
So they have been keeping track of the propane usage over the last few years and found that on the on-demand tank heaters, hot water heaters use much more propane than the typical round tank heaters that they have installed in another bathhouse. So a change and upgrade is necessary. They replaced the water heaters in bathhouse number 2 with the same suggested setup a couple of years ago and have had success since.
And 2 40-gallon tanks is enough to run an entire bathhouse?
Yes, I asked him that question too, and he said yes.
Okay.
These must be high rate of recovery. So I
It
think
must
Jeremy
be.
made a good point. Just make sure people run out of hot water. So
Oh yeah, nothing's more frustrating than standing in the shower with a head full of shampoo and getting hit with cold water.
Yeah, I
Like,
think
we're gonna question it. Al says it's gonna work. It's gonna
maybe
work.
on this meeting too. If
I see Tara, but I guess I don't know what what's Al, what would he be under?
I don't know.
If he's on, could he raise his hand so
Yeah,
and could pick you out?
yeah, I can see, like I said, I see Tara on there and I don't know if she's, you know, wants to answer anything, but oh, I see a raised hand. So where do I just gotta find it, right? Oh, he would be guest, I'm guessing.
Hey.
Did I,
think Al, you're on.
Al, are you on? He should be. Al?
Can you hear us now?
I'm gonna hit the lower hand button. Okay, I guess Al, again, if you're on, Al, can you raise your hand again? Because I did hit unmute, so I don't know why it didn't do it, but now I don't see the raised hand.
It must be
Oh,
him.
there it is. Wait, someplace. Sorry, this is being, okay. All right, so for some reason it's saying mute. So you should be unmuted. Check your microphone to see if your microphone is on, that you're not internally muted.
Boy, these Zoom meetings are so much fun, aren't they?
Hey, man, I'm just reading the screen. It literally says mute, not ask to unmute. So, I mean, I can, or it says lower hand. So I'm going to hit, I guess I'll hit mute. So I'm going to hit ask to unmute again. So I just did that.
He
So
says
in
he's
theory,
yeah, I have a message from him. He says he's trying.
all right. So in theory, he should be able to talk.
I guess, is there any other questions you have for him?
Do you have a little icon at the bottom or at the top, Al, where it shows like a microphone that you can maybe click? Like I have a mute at the top of my screen. But yeah, I mean, in theory, you're unmuted, so I don't know what else to do.
Maybe I'm gonna try to blend.
Huh?
It says, he sent me a text, says I do, it's not letting me unmute.
Oh, well,
So I have an idea. I'm gonna blend old technology with newer.
Because that always works so well.
Exactly. just hang on.
There he is.
I'm gonna put you on my speaker, so you're on speaker on my phone.
I was really trying.
sorry, Al. It says that you have a microphone. All right. Do you want to add anything or does anybody have any questions for Al?
I think your comments answered my questions.
Okay.
You know, the on-demand heaters that we had in the bathhouse were just giving us troubles over the last years. They were probably 10 years old, and the parts to fix them, they would burn out the boards every year or so. That was $250 a board.
Yeah.
Well, that was just not cost effective. They would always break, it seemed like, when they were needed the most, and we had to constantly go down there and reset them. So when we did the other bathhouse too, we bought the 2-round 40 gallons, which I didn't think personally was going to be big enough, but we have not had one problem with those in 2 years. And the demand is, I mean, it keeps up with demand and everything. So even when we're full.
Do you have, what's the flow rate on the shower heads? Is it low enough that 40 gallons is going to handle that many showers? Because I mean, one of my teenage daughters will use 40 gallons in one sitting.
So Al, I guess these are high recovery water heaters, right? Commercial is what you said?
Commercial water heaters, yeah.
Okay, so they replenish very quickly. It's different than a home hot water heater.
Cool.
They do, and the showers also have timers on them.
Okay. Right on.
And take up
You're
25.
happy, I'm happy.
Yep, that's where I'm standing too. If Al's happy, I'm happy as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sorry for the technical difficulties on getting you on, but thanks for being there. All right. Is there a motion then?
And we were
Yeah,
looking at.
I'll
sorry.
make a motion to approve the purchase from Tomark for parts and equipment for renovations to the bathhouses at Old Orchard Park in the amount of $4,424.68.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Oh, he can't talk. I think this is perfect. I'm just going to keep him muted. Just kidding. Let me find him.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. And thanks again, Al, for being available. Okay, next on is number 8, the SCADA, that's how you pronounce it, integrator for the sanitary sewer pump stations rehabilitation. We have 2 row engineers on, so I am going to ask them. I saw Rick and then I saw somebody else.
Richmond. Dave Richmond.
Okay, there we go. All right, both are unmuted, I believe. Dave, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right, hi.
And I'll let Dave just give a brief summary of what we have in front of you here.
Okay,
So the SCADA integrator, let me back up a minute. SCADA is the way that the pump stations can communicate to the operators. SCADA is short for supervisory control and data acquisition. What it'll do is in the control panels, there'll be a small computer, a PLC in the control panels that will take a lot of the data from the pump stations, whether or it's monitoring the pump run times, if there's a error with the pumps, if the pumps are shut off and aren't running properly, and it'll supply that data to F&V, the people that are operating the system, through messages, and they'll be able to view this either on their cell phones. If they had a tablet, they could look at it on a tablet, or the computer back at the DPW hall. And essentially what this is going to do is allow them to be able to look at the different pump stations and see what is transpiring with the pump stations. Currently, the pump stations right now are on just an alarm system and a light. And if it doesn't happen to get noticed or heard, they don't know if there's an issue with the pump station. So this just is providing much more better operation for the pump stations. It was something that was recommended in the SAW grant that was done a few years ago. So we're putting this in as part of the SRF package, and essentially the contractor will come in and put all the equipment in. And one of the things we wanted to bring in front of you is just that with this system, after the first year of service, there'll be a yearly service fee, which includes cellular data, because these all work off of cell modems, and hosting from the supplier. They host all the software. They provide all the upgrades for the softwares, for the computers, the PLCs during this as part of their yearly maintenance fee.
And the reason we're bringing this to the board tonight, when the actual project will be advertised and awarded in the April-May timeframe, is for us to finalize the plans to go out for that bid and to be reviewed by Eagle. We need to identify this equipment so it can be incorporated into the controls or into the pump stations, and it will be incorporated into the bid packages. And we obviously need to have that before we turn in the entire package. So that's why we need board approval to go with the recommended integrator that we're proposing tonight. And that, as Dave was saying, all the initial costs and all that stuff will be part of the SRF project and all that stuff. So tonight there's no need for any authorization for payment of anything. This is just the selection of the SCADA integrator equipment.
Of all of the sites that are going to receive the SCADA equipment, have they been site surveyed so that we know that there's actually going to be cell signal in those areas?
Yes, yeah, that is something that we've looked through. You know, there was two thoughts here. There's two ways you can go for communication. You can look at using cellular, or you can look at using radio. And it's been discussed with F&V and through all our work that cellular is the way to go. It would have more issues with radio because you wouldn't have good line of sight. So for the stations that we're servicing, yes, the cellular data will be perfect.
Awesome. And is this a requirement that we put this new equipment in, or is it something that's just being offered that we should jump on?
It was a recommendation, and what it does is it allows for the operators to have much more control over the system and monitor the system much closer than what has been done in the past. And it was a recommendation of the SAW grant. When the SAW grant was done, they went out and inspected all the stations, and it was just a recommendation because there was some issues with some of the alarms on some of the old stations.
How often have we had the light go on, if you will, on one of the older style stations where it wasn't noticed to the point that it overflowed or caused damage?
Well, I know one station where it had been on for quite a while because we had gone up there with F&V, and fortunately it was one of the stations where there's not a lot of flow. So there was no issues with overflow. as far as some of the main stations that you have, I don't know if they've ever had an issue where they haven't seen the alarm, heard the alarm, or seen the light flashing or not. I'm not sure.
I'm just wondering, I mean, I love my technology. I'm sure everybody knows that, but I don't, but I try to be frugal on expenditures. And if this is going to be a recurring fee for the township, I mean, we've got what, 20 some odd lift stations, and we're basically going to have to pay for a cell phone at each one of them for this, for this equipment to communicate back to the software so that people can be notified.
So if I may explain real quick here, the company that we've recommended is UIS SCADA. They're a pretty large company. They're probably one of the largest companies in Michigan doing SCADA. And for the 23 stations that we would be servicing, after the first year, their monthly service fee or their yearly service fee would be $9,385. And that includes all the cellular service. That's your cell fees are included in all that in that fee.
How much of that $9,000 fee is dedicated to the cell service?
They were saying it was like $35 or $40 a station
Per month or
per month.
total?
Yeah, per month for each station.
Yeah, so basically we're paying for a cellular device at each one of those stations. And this is going to be a continuing fee forever and ever. Amen.
That is true. You can also, if you decide that this isn't the way you want to go with it, you can always eventually get rid of the integrator. But then what you're doing is you're going to have DPW staff running the SCADA system. They'd have to have software set up on a computer in the DPW, which is going to require upgrades and different and things like that as well.
Are said DPW employees going to have access to the system at the way it's set up now, or is that something we would have to add on, if you will?
No, they're going to have access to it. They're going to be able to access it through their phones,
okay,
through tablets, through the computer at DPW, any of their computers. They will be able to access this information.
Cool.
It would be F&V and not our public works.
Right. So
Right,
F&V is
yeah.
going to take primary on keeping an eye on that stuff, but then our DPW staff will still have access to look at it, so that they can see if they're, if they want to look at it, they can. Correct.
They would be able to look at it too.
What other information is going to be provided by this system other than is the pump running, and is the sludge too high? I mean, are we going to get flow rates? Are we going to get pump run times? What other information is going to be garnered here?
We can get whatever we want out of it. It's whatever we want to program into it. And for I think there's 4 main stations we're going to have programmed into it, the pump run times, which we'd be able to generate what the flows are coming using the pump run times.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be set up for errors to know if the motor is overheating, if the pump hasn't kicked on, if it's still running, there'll be a low level alarm. So if the pump keeps on running,
sure.
There's just there's a bunch of different things that we can set up to help them control the system. It's whatever F&V wants to be able to control the system.
So are all of those features going to be included in every single pump station? We're just going to turn them on and off at our leisure, or is there a license fee for each individual station, for each individual module?
No, it's the same. Each station is going to have the same PLC. So all it is a matter of reprogramming the PLC at each station. And that can be done remotely by UIS to be able to go in and say, okay, we want to be able to have this station so that it can now register the pump run times, or it can provide us with just an error. With the PLC that's going in there, we'll be able to program it to however we want for, whatever station it is.
Seeing as how the cellular communication is a two-way street, is there the ability for F&V or local DPW staff to access this equipment and turn things on and off manually with the software?
Yes, there is. Yes.
Okay.
That's the advantage of it. Let's say, now if an error comes up and there's a phone call that comes in that says one of the stations is not running, Doug Moen from F&V has to send somebody out, or he has to run out to the lift station to see what's going on. With this information, he'll be able to pull it up now, that lift station, and say, okay, we have a pump that won't start, or we have a pump that won't shut off, or, they'll be able to get a good idea before they send somebody out there to the station to know what the problem is. And that'll save them some time and effort as well.
I got a question. The one thing that threw me at the work session was the first year cloud service with Kennedy and nothing for SCADA. So you're saying, so the service fee for years 2 through 10 with SCADA is included with the cell service, but exactly what else is included in the service contract? Is that all the ladder logic programming in case we need to add things, or?
Yes, it
going
is.
forward?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you for that.
And so with Kennedy, their initial bid did not include the first year of service, where UIS, their bid that's going to be part of the SRF funding did include the first year of service. Plus, UIS is holding their initial fee for 2 years, or for 3 years, I'm sorry, for the first 3 years. And then it's subject to a 3% increase after that, moving forward. And that's why the spreadsheet I put together there kind of showed what it would be if you looked at 10 years out, what the difference in cost would be for between the two companies. And that was one of the main reasons we selected UIS, was just from both companies are able to do the work, but from a financial standpoint, UIS was a much better for the township.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Very good.
And just one overview of the whole thing is as we, and I think at the last meeting, it was suggested that we participate in an upcoming work session to give a better overview of these projects, both the sewer and the water. But one of the things that came out of the SAW report, and I think I have mentioned, I believe at past meetings, and I apologize if this board hasn't heard it yet, but the Air Force system that was built was a typical government system, very large and very oversized for the current situation and future situations out there at the base and for the township. And that has been one ongoing problem that Catherine and Doug Mullen have had to deal with, because they haven't had this remote capability, and the system is oversized. And when you have low flows, it causes probably as much problems, if not more. I'll defer to Dave on that, as if your system is being flooded out with high flows. Low flows can cause just as much problems, and the system consistently has seen that. And with this control, and that's why it was a big recommendation that came out of SAW, was to upgrade and install system-wide controls, is that it's going to allow F&V to monitor and to control those low flows coming in, so that those pumps aren't cycling as much and therefore wearing the pumps out over time. And they've had several instances where they've had to rehab pumps and change pumps out a lot more frequently because they haven't had this type of control.
So you're basically saying that this control can actually save us money over the long run in pump repair and replacement?
Yes.
So you'll have the ability to turn pumps on and off when they need to go on and off based on a level control that you're going to have in the lift station.
Exactly. If we got a wet weather situation or whatever, they're going to be able to control it remotely. Once one end of the system is showing that there's a lot more higher flows and stuff, and they can regulate the system so that it doesn't cause problems upstream or downstream.
All makes sense. Thank you for putting the work in.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea. Long overdue, probably.
So tonight you need a motion to include this? What do you need exactly from us?
That the township would accept UIS SCADA Incorporated as the township SCADA integrator for the sanitary sewer lift station project.
That is correct.
All right. Is there a motion from anybody for that?
I'll make a motion that we accept UIS SCADA integrator incorporated as the township integrator for the sewer project.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Okay,
Support
so
from
there's a
Jones.
motion by Mr. Westbarth, support by Mr. Cummings, I believe. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurstabarth,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. All right, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave and
Thank
Rick.
you.
Everybody have a good night.
Yep,
You as
you
well.
too.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, okay, so next on is number 9, EIC request for joint work session. Mitch?
Okay, it's been requested of the EIC that a joint work session between the EIC and the Township Board occur to discuss items of mutual interest, namely a discussion with potential developers about what housing developments could look like in Oscoda in the near term. The date that they had discussed was Thursday, February 18th. I want to say the time was 2 p.m. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's the requested time. I don't know if Todd's still on the call.
He is, I just unmuted him if he's got anything to add.
Yeah, we were targeting 3 p.m., but I think that's
3 p.m. All right, 3
flexible. I think that's flexible.
Right.
I assume we'll still be living under some governor's orders that we'll have to do this via a Zoom call. So whatever works good for the board.
That works for me.
That's fine with me.
3 o'clock
Give
would
me
be
that
better
date and
for
time
me.
again.
What was the
Yeah,
date
give me the
again?
date and time again.
It would be Thursday, February 18th,
3 o'clock.
We're looking.
3 p.m.
That'll be fine for me.
Oh, it's next
give me one
Thursday. Yeah,
moment.
that should be fine.
That's correct.
Yeah, we're almost halfway through February. Woohoo.
Todd, would you set the Zoom meeting for that, or do you need us to do that?
I would prefer that you would handle that.
All right, we will do so.
Okay, do
Are
we
we
need a
agreeing
motion?
here on
I was
3
gonna say,
p.m.?
I think we need a motion probably.
I'm sorry, I keep asking, am I muted?
No, 3 o'clock.
3 p.m.
Yeah,
Okay,
3 p.m. is
good.
what we said.
Okay,
I think originally
thank you
they said 2, but then Todd said 3. So, and
very much.
3 would work better for me. I have airport authority meeting that got postponed from morning till afternoon, and I believe it's at 1, so that should give me enough time.
All
All
right.
So
right.
I would make a motion to approve a joint work session with the EIC committee and Township Board on February 18th at 3 p.m.
Okay, is there support? Sorry, I think I said, is there support the same time somebody supported it? Was
I
that?
think
Jamie did.
I did.
Okay, so a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Wurstabarth,
yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards,
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, next on is number 10, method to selling township properties.
Okay. Since you've kind of already set up a work session with the EIC next week, it would seem prudent to discuss the parameters of items that we want in such a framework of selling properties. I'm just throwing these out. It could be the highest and best price. Is the offer cash? How will it be financed? Proof of that? What's the timeline for completion? What is the plan for building, including a calendar when it would be done? Would it be done in phases? How does it meet our township housing needs? What would be the rates for the units being rented or if they're being sold? And any other questions? This item, and just there was a question, because it was postponed, this particular item, we did not, the board, as per your protocol, you didn't postpone it indefinitely or to a time certain. So it is timely that we brought it back, since you didn't have an exact time, or but your protocol document talks about postponed indefinitely. So I would recommend that we discuss this with the EIC and come up with what that framework would be, and then put that out there for any and all future purchase considerations on properties.
Do you have examples of said framework?
I have in the past, and again, I'm not sure what the EIC may be thinking of as far as, we've kind of given them some leeway to go out and talk to people about possible purchasing of property, and that's somewhat in their charge as well. So they may have some particulars that they might want to see of such proposals. But typically what you would have is at least some framework to take any offer, put it against that framework and say, did they answer enough questions that you feel confident that you could actually make the answer of yes, no, or a counter? As I think Todd discussed a little bit this evening, we discussed, we don't really have this structure, so we get LOIs and inquiries of all types and of all degrees of detail. And so when you have that, it's difficult to kind of measure these against each other, especially if they're on the same property. So that would be my recommendation, is let's take a look at it with the EIC, create the framework, and then pass the framework at our next meeting. And then that way, moving forward on any and all properties, we have something to go with of, this is the minimum that we wish, if you're going to put in an LOI or an offer, it must include the following.
Okay, any other questions?
We're going to kick this around with the EIC at our meeting on the 18th.
I think we should, and again, I think up until that point, it would not be bad to just throw out items that could be considered in that framework. You can send them to me, and I will compile them all and make sure that everybody in the EIC and the board has it prior to that work session, and we could talk about them. And be, have a good discussion. I think honestly, there might be 8 to 10 items that you probably would want a question answered before we move on. Just from what I've witnessed from the board, you seem to want details. So I would not think that this framework would only have a price, and who you are, but I would think it would have a little more detail than that. But I think too, it would give you some confidence in consideration of said offers to be able to say, yes, they've answered all the questions that we basically have asked, and now I feel comfortable to answer that offer or request.
Definitely not opposed to talking about it, so looks like we'll be doing that soon.
Yeah, I think we could definitely do a better job than what we've done to date on what it is that we're expecting for somebody to submit an offer. So otherwise, it feels like we're kind of negotiating against ourselves, in my opinion. But
And may I comment or not?
you sure can, Todd. Otherwise, I would have muted you. Just kidding. No,
I mean,
you can.
slipping one past the goalie here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think like it's natural, like we get an offer and now we're seeing an environment where we're actually getting competing offers on, or at least competing LOIs on same properties. You guys have lots of questions, which is understandable and prudent. Like we want to know if we have this asset, why we should sell it to this entity, because we want to sell it for the greater good of the community. So there's always questions behind that. I think we should be in a position where we already know a commonality of, I'm not saying we're going to have all the answers, but we should at least hit the basics of what will the board always, at least at a minimum, want to know about this offer so we can judge it against what's good for the community. And it's, items, whatever, 1, 2, 3, 1 through 6. Is it a 10 point checklist that Todd should go through or the EIC should go through before the offer gets to you. And like Mitch had said earlier, there's, okay, are you financed? Can you get financing? What's your, if you're going to build multifamily housing, that's good for the community, that's great, but what's your schedule? Can you meet that schedule? And, and again, it's not, I don't think we're talking about a 30-page essay here, but I think you guys, the board always asks very appropriate questions about these offers. And we don't make them provide what we think will be a preliminary list of answers. So we're always, well, we can't answer that. So we're always going back to them or no action is taken. So I think a minimal list of this is what we want when you submit anything on a piece of our property. Here's the list. You at least have to provide this to even have a discussion.
Yep, I would concur. Kind of why we're in the situation we are on a couple things right now. We just haven't spelled out exactly what we want. And, Todd hasn't been, as he's indicated before, hasn't been given those marching orders as to what to bring back to the board. He's just told to get projects, but if we don't define what it is that we need to make a decision, then we're just wasting everybody's time. The developers are going to get frustrated, because we only meet every 2 weeks, all that stuff. And as we've discussed, I mean, you're going into, we can't discuss things in closed session. So then it makes it makes people's offers public, and that makes that pretty difficult then to move forward. So we need to have a ducks in a row before we get the offer in front of us, I guess.
Well, we're going to head into Article 11,
Right.
which is all the reasons we're not really going to be able to actually respond, or all the questions we have about, well, what involves this offer. So we have a lot of this stuff at least it is at a baseline level. Again, I'm not saying we're always going to ask or they're going to submit answers to everything we always want to know, but yeah, see, told you, Ann.
Yeah, there's that dog. He told me he might have a dog that barks in the background. I get it. That's why I'm at the township hall with my meeting. But right. So do we need, Mitch, are you needing like a motion on this, for?
Maybe just some consensus, if that's what we want to do, or we want to do something else.
Oh, I think that's a good idea.
Doesn't hurt to have a discussion.
Absolutely.
I wish we would have done it before tonight, but I can't go backwards. So, yep.
Okay.
All right. So then number 11 would be the Skeel
Okay. That one,
properties.
again, and looking at how things occurred, I could not place this on the agenda because it was something that was discussed in a closed session. One of you, or actually you as the board, you had to place this on the agenda. So I apologize, but I had to do a deep research on that to make sure I knew what I was talking about. So we have 2 offers, 2 LOIs. There is a strong possibility that there may be a third that will be forthcoming, that would be received by Todd. I don't have a timeline or anything like that, but he has received at least discussion or communication to that effect, that there may actually be a third Skeel LOI. If you were to ask me at this very moment, hey, what would you do with these LOIs? I would reject them at this time and have, if we establish our framework, then give these 2 and possibly the third interested party, say a 60-day period, then they all could answer, and then you'd have basically 3 within the framework, and then you could basically look at those and have a well thought out decision as to which one you wish to act upon, or any of them for that matter.
Any other comments from the board? Discussion?
I'll give you my 2 comments on this. We have offers in front of us, which we do need to act on. So But as we're getting ready to have a discussion with the EIC concerning housing needs in the township, I guess I'm going to agree that yes, we should reject these offers as written and come back with criteria. Because to quote Jim Beyer, when I was on the board in the past, the township has been known to make really good deals, paraphrase quote. However, in making a good deal, I want to make sure that we have shovel-ready projects ready to go, not something that somebody's going to buy land and sit on it and do nothing with it, or take forever to build something. So I have some criteria in my head that I'd like to see met before we sell that property. Now, if somebody comes and offers us full prices we have listed for, there's nothing we can do about it other than they have to meet the zoning that it's approved for. So that's my 2 cents.
But these are not listed under any type of real estate agreement. I'm making a general statement there, Mitch, because we do have property listed. So if we have property listed and somebody comes in and offers to pay full price, in my mind, there's really nothing we can do. So in this case, I'd like to see wherewithal of the people interested in their capability of doing projects that are going to benefit the community, i.e. housing in this instant for steel. So.
And Steve, I'd agree with you about the township does not need speculators. That is one thing. If we are serious about housing and the housing needs of our community, speculation is not an option.
I'm in total agreement with you on that.
Should put that as one of the questions. Are you a speculator? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, as it relates to this, we actually had a purchase agreement on this property, and it was countered. And in the past, offers that we've had on different properties when it comes to with the intent of housing, because we all know that we're in desperate need of housing. So when someone comes along and says, I want to put housing on this property, and they want a little lower price, the only thing that we've in the past, the previous board was interested in was, what is your time frame? And we would put specific time frames on when certain things had to happen. And if those timelines weren't met, then the property would revert back to the township. That was on advice of our legal counsel. And like I said before, we had an offer on this property, we countered it. And in my opinion, if the response to that counter was simply the original offer, then in my opinion, that offer now is off the table, not to be considered. So if we want to table all these and put together a list of requirements that we're going to have, the list of requirements is going to be different depending on the property, of course. Mm-hmm. Because if we're talking about housing, then the primary concern, at least that I have, is what's the timeline? Is this something that you're going to have a site plan in and done within 12 months, and you're going to have this project completed within 2 years, or is it something that's going to go drag on for 10 years or something? And we've not, in the past, we've not been willing to accept an offer at a lower price if they weren't willing to agree to those timelines. We actually had an offer that we made that offer to, and they said no, we won't agree to those timelines. So the deal fell apart. But I think it's important, and as badly as we need housing, the more important, and to me, I don't think the price is important, but I'm more interested in a commitment from the purchaser at a lower price to make a commitment to when these are going to be completed. And that would be the number one thing on my list for properties as relating to housing. Now, like Mr. Worthebart pointed out, if they come in and want to pay the full price, then in my opinion, they can do whatever they want with the property. We can't, at that point, then we're not offering a reduced price for them to commit to a timeline of when building will be done. So if somebody wants to pay full price and as a speculation that maybe the property will become more valuable, then, you know, more power to them. But generally what our offers have been in the past are for much lower offers than what we've had the property listed at, and not necessarily listed with a realtor, but what we have listed in our records with the township. And they're very reduced price, but again, we're in desperate need of housing, so we're willing to work with them to make that happen. But the important thing is that we have a timeline agreement on when that'll happen. So,
as well as financing, you know, the wherewithal to do projects like that. So,
right.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, and that goes back, I guess, to the criteria. I understand what you're saying about if we establish a price. I mean, generally speaking, if you list something and somebody offers full price, I mean, if you do not accept, and because there's no contingencies or anything, if you don't accept, then they have recourse and can come after you because you didn't accept a full price and it was within whatever the zoning allowed. That being said, if we had specifications that had to be met along with, which is what we're talking about, along with a price, then that gives us, you know, additional arm to review the proposal. So even if it's full price and they can't meet X, Y, and Z, whatever X, Y, and Z is that we've determined for that property, we still, again, we're making decisions based on public property, not personal property. These aren't decisions we're making for ourselves. They're decisions made for the taxpayers. So we have the ability to look at that, I would think. I guess we'd need to run that. Maybe once we have our criteria, we can run it by our attorney and he can take a look and make sure we're asking for things that we can be asking for.
you know, the only thing I would add is we just all keep in mind, we just don't make that scope, whatever it is, so narrow that it scares off everybody too. So.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we're not, pie, you know, pie in the sky is one thing, but realistic, you know, but again, if we put stuff on there about, I don't know what it is. If we determine that we don't want whatever multiple family, I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there. If there's certain things we don't want in a certain area, you know, based on whatever is in the zoning or the, you know, the plan, then we could incorporate that in our specs, I guess. But
so that being said, I think we'll talk about this in a week and a half or so. But
So do we need to?
the Skeel properties, getting back to the Skeel properties, I think we should formally reject those with new criteria to come out.
That would be my recommendation as well.
right.
Was that a motion, Mr. Woosterbarth?
That is a motion that we formally reject the two offers that we have on Skeel, and we'll send out revised information that we're looking for the development of that property to all interested parties.
Okay, and support for that?
I'll support that.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Westerbarth and support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Woosterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. All right, next on is the recreational marijuana recommendation. And I am going to, I'm assuming, I did see Eric log in. Did you want me to unmute him, Mitch?
Well, basically and I know Mr. Palmer is a member of that same board. The Planning Commission is requesting that the Township Board direct the Planning Commission to begin the formulation of a recreational marijuana segment of the ordinance.
And as I mentioned, we have both Mimi and Eric zoomed in. So does anybody have any questions for them or? bill specifically?
I guess I'd open it up to all three of them if they want to make a few comments.
Okay, I'm gonna unmute Mimi, I just did, and Eric. I just did.
Well, I would just say that a year or so ago, the Planning Commission recommended to the Township Board that we opt out of the recreational marijuana because the state had not formalized regular rules as it related to the recreational. And we recommended that we wait until those rules have been formulated. Those rules now have been formulated and are permanent. And so that's why the Planning Commission at this time is recommending that we put it to the Township Board for approval to move forward with the adult use recreational marijuana.
Okay, I don't.
Well, I guess I will go ahead and move that the Planning Commission have a discussion on the option to opt into adult use recreational marijuana and start looking at amending our ordinances to that purpose.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer and support by Mr. Sutton.
And I have a question.
Okay.
Is there a facility, a medical marijuana facility right now in our township that is suffering because we have not approved a recreational marijuana ordinance?
I don't even think we have one open in our township yet, do we?
No, we do not
No.
have one currently operating.
But I will tell you, they are in serious concern about if they do open up strictly as a medical facility, that they just won't have a reasonable business plan to operate if they're limited to only the medical, because there just aren't that many people aren't renewing their medical cards. They don't need to anymore. So it's a difficult position for the two that we have approved site plans for. They've both have put extensive money into their facilities, and now they're faced with a serious situation in terms of what their business plan will look like if they're not able to, include the recreational. And what the state has been doing so far is those licensees that have the medical licenses approved, it's virtually an automatic authorization for the recreational because all the background check has been done, the finance has been done for them, so those licenses are moved through pretty quickly.
Do we know if
go-
Oscoda Township has approved the recreational marijuana ordinance?
They
do
have.
not.
They have.
They have, and so
They have.
has Tawas and so has East Tawas. So I'm not a big supporter of this business. However, I don't think we should limit people in Oscoda Township when they can go to Osavo or Iosco if they've made the investment. The state laws changed. So unfortunately, I think we need to change as well. I think it levels the playing field. So within the same county, you're going to be able to buy both. Only one in Oscoda, which would be medical. And I think from listening into the Planning Commission meeting last Monday night, there's 231 medical cards in Oscoda Township. So that's their whole scope of customers that they can only sell to at this point in time.
Do you foresee any issues, Jamie?
No, I was just asking. I didn't know.
Okay, any other discussion before we go to roll call? All right, hearing none, roll call, please. Oh, maybe did he get muted somehow? Are you there, Josh?
Yes, I'm here, sorry.
That's okay.
Who made motion and support? Oh, I got that. I was on the wrong sheet. Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
No.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, moving on to other, we have the Bike Path Committee appointment. Josh is submitting his letter of interest.
Does he live in the township?
I don't think so. You might want to vote that out.
Well, I would just say that typically we have had two members from Oscoda on the IET committee. Osabo has two members on the IET committee. So I would make a motion to approve Josh Sutton to the IET Bike Path Committee.
I'll second
Support.
that.
Nope.
Go ahead, Mr.
You beat
Wusterbarth.
me to it.
That's fine either way.
All
Do
right.
we have two currently? This would, Josh would be our second?
Yes.
Yes. So there's a motion by Mr. Palmer. Was it second by
Mr.
Jeremy.
Wusterbarth.
Mr.
Okay.
Wusterbarth? Okay. All right, roll call.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. All right, next
Yeah.
on is,
If I might, Ann, just a comment to Josh. I will get you the information for the meeting we're having this Thursday. I believe it's at 2:00. Will you be able to attend that?
I should be able to, yeah, as long as you send that over. I don't think we have.
Okay,
that.
it'll be a Zoom meeting. I'll get that over to you.
All right, thank you, Bill.
Sure.
okay, next on then Warrior Pavilion fee waiver request from the Audubon Society.
I remember discussing this on Friday and
Mitch?
it was,
Where's Mitch?
Where's Mitch?
I'm here.
Okay,
You have it before you, so now it's, how do you wish to proceed?
okay.
well, Mr. Palmer pointed out that we're not really allowed to give out public funds. And this would be giving out public funds. So I think we have to deny it.
Well, there's a policy where if there is a, if it's open, I mean, there's, I think, a fee waiver form, actually. I don't see it in the packet, but there's something to the extent of if it's open to the public, consider it a public benefit. I mean, there is criteria because we do waive fees for other entities. We've done it for fishing tournaments and so on and so forth. So, but I think based on their request, it doesn't seem like it meets that criteria because it is not open to the public and so on. It's a membership meeting, so.
And typically, as I mentioned before, we normally don't waive the deposit requirement, only the
Right.
fee.
Right. So, and then the question always becomes, where would you draw the line if the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts or whoever else, wanted to have a fee, rental fee, so.
Do we need a motion to deny this or do we just not act on it?
I think a formal motion, either
I
way,
would say,
would be
yeah,
appropriate.
Well, I move that we deny the nonprofit organization of Osabo Valley Audubon the rental fee waiver at this time.
Support.
okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Palmer. A roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. All right, next on is the tip of the mitt watershed foot site use request for a mobile boat wash. Mitch?
Yes, so you have that request before you. There was some question about how it took place, and so I have that answer. The boat wash operation would include a larger power wash unit that is pulled by a pickup truck. All of the water that the boat wash uses is contained in the pump unit. The boat wash occurs over a large tarp containment pad that vehicles and trailers drive onto and park. The containment pad is 20 feet by 2 car lengths long. All water collected during the boat wash is pumped back into a tank in the power wash unit. Any water or material is kept on the pad by bumpers and is pumped off back into the tank. The containment pad is normally placed near the ramp so that boats launching or coming off the water can be washed. The vehicle and the boat pulls onto the pad and staff wash the boat while the driver stays in the vehicle. The wash is entirely optional, doesn't damage paint or finish, and is of no cost to the boater. That came from the Watershed Council and from the Forest Service.
Very cool.
All right, thank you for that. This is where having the work session and having some, where we want additional information brought to us for the board meeting is definitely helpful. So, because I know you had some questions, Jeremy.
Yeah, and he just
hopefully
answered
those-
every one of them.
Yeah, good job.
All four, it worked out well.
Yep. All right.
So their
Yeah.
request is for an event, for this boat wash event to take place on Friday, July 16th and Saturday, July 17th of 2021. Tentative time would be from 3 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on Friday and 6:30 to 11 p.m. on Saturday.
Is that 6:30 a.m. or 6:30 p.m. on Saturday?
I think it's 6:30 a.m. to 11.
Ooh, that's a long day.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I looked into that as well and got the same information, Mitch, that you got. The one point that was made was that these, and the reason I checked is we've done these before, and I knew that I was pretty sure that question had been asked, and I just didn't remember what the answer was. So it piqued my curiosity as well when Mr. Spencer raised the questions. And I did look into it, and what Mr. Mitchell said is exactly right. But the primary function of these things is education. One of the things that a lot of people don't know is that it's illegal to transport a watercraft from one site to the other if it contains invasive species of any kind. And DNR officers and state police officers are trained to watch for those. So these are some of the things that the boaters, when they come out, not only are their boats washed, but they're given material that informs them about transporting their boat with invasive species. So it makes them aware that, in the future, they check for that before they go running out across the highway. So it's
And
a
lets
good
them know
program.
that they're being watched.
Yeah, it's a good program. We've done it here before. Last time they did it at Ratliff Park. So,
Well, I would move to approve the watershed at foot site dam use request by the mobile boat wash on the dates specified by Mr. Mitchell.
Support.
All right, motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wursterbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. All right, next on, Planning Commission appointment. I included in your packet some information in regard to John Minor, and I would like to suggest that he be appointed for a one-year term. that term ending 12/31/2021. And the reason for the 1-year term was from discussion with Eric on current terms that are in place so that we don't have people all going out at the same time. So. Any discussion? Is there a motion?
And we know he's a resident of Oscoda Township.
Yes, he is. His address was on the information, and Tammy, it has redacted the addresses from anybody that I submitted information on. So she
Okay.
said that she had done that in the past.
Okay, as long as you can confirm their residence, that's fine.
Yes. Yep. For
I
sure.
was reading in an MTA email the other day, and someone was asking about the appointments to these tertiary boards, and everyone was asking about what questions do we ask these potential board members that will kind of show that they have some working knowledge of what they're about to walk into. Do we have any questionnaires like that for any of these candidates? Just out of curiosity, I just saw it in the email a couple of days ago. So
I provided information from Eric in regard to what would be asked of them. As far as I know, we didn't have questions. I really wasn't given any information. So
right.
So I reached out to people that actually Mr. Minor had actually run for office. So to me, that says that he is interested in our community and being a part of it. And I felt that that was a good start. So he's born and raised here, has some extensive project management background in the IT and other industries. So I think he'd be a plus.
So the answer is no, we don't have a questionnaire.
I don't have one, no.
Okay.
Nope.
I'd make a motion that we accept John Minor's appointment to the Planning Commission.
I would support that. Or can I guess, since I'm the one who's bringing it to the table. Maybe I shouldn't.
You're a
You
board
can.
member.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can.
All right, well, I support it. Otherwise I wouldn't have brought it, right?
There
Okay,
you go.
all right. Motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Ms. Richards. Roll call, please.
Mr.
Can I
Palmer.
ask a point of order here?
Sure.
Is Ms. McGuire going to be voting on this?
I don't know why I can't vote on it.
Isn't he your brother?
Yes, but there's no financial gain to me to not vote.
Okay.
If you want me to not vote, that's fine.
Well, I know in previous boards, when family members have been involved in an appointment, the family member on the board has recused themselves.
Okay, I don't remember that, but that's fine.
I think we have to vote to allow her to recuse herself. Are you making that request, Ms. McGuire?
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessary.
It's not.
I think it actually is in the.
Yeah, when I read through the
Yeah.
MTA book, it says that if any member of the board wishing to recuse themselves from a yes or no vote requires a
Support
vote
for the
of the
board
board.
members.
Yeah.
I thought I read that too, but.
Remember, you've got legal counsel on.
Hey, legal counsel, Mr.
Yeah.
Voda, what do we
There
do
you
here?
go.
You're right insofar as you do need to have a vote as to whether or not there's a conflict, and whether or not the individual would be allowed to abstain from voting. And so I think that would be the first step here. As to whether or not there's a prohibition on this action, I think if it has been township policy in the past for family members to recuse themselves when other family members are being considered for a township post, I think that's a good idea to stick with it for now.
So do I need to make a motion to allow Ms. McGuire to recuse herself from this
Yeah.
vote? I so move.
Yes.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by, I believe, Mr. Palmer, for Ms. McGuire to recuse herself from the vote. I just giving Josh a minute there because I know that was an add-on. So are you ready for the roll call, Josh?
Ready.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards.
Yes. All
Do
right,
I-
then
do
back.
I- Yeah, because I don't ask Ms. McGuire on that,
No,
correct?
well, I think that would,
Do you?
But-
Oh, that would be a yes.
yeah.
Do we need
Yeah.
to vote whether or not she can vote?
Yeah. Come on, we're gonna get out of here at 9:30 if it doesn't kill us. So let's keep going. All
For
right.
sure.
I think, I mean, I'm assuming that she doesn't vote on that, but.
All right, so
All right, so that's passed. Now we have a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Ms. Richards to make the appointment for John Minor for the Planning Commission appointment. Roll call for that, please.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer,
yes.
Mr. Cummings,
No.
Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. All right, next on is Zoning Board of Appeals appointment. Included in my packet was an email from Mr. Adam Hume, who owns several businesses in town and also been a longtime resident of Oscoda. I am making a recommendation that he be appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We actually have 2 seats of vacant, but this would serve one of the 2 seats. So again, that is a 1-year term. 12/31/2021 would be the expiration. So I would like to make a motion that we appoint Mr. Adam Hume to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Okay, there's a motion by Ms. Richards, support by Ms. McGuire. Any discussion?
Again, we know that he's a resident of Oscoda.
Yes, again, that, yep. Yes, he
Okay.
is. Cedar Lake Road, I can tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah, I know Mr. Hume. He lives in town.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion passed. All right, next and last on other is DPW resignation of Chris Kitchen.
Okay, so we had a recent resignation. I know you had asked to see the resignation letter. After examining it, I'm not including that in the packet. It would violate HIPAA if I did. So that said,
All right, and I think I was one of the people that pushed to have this on the agenda just based on conversations I had with Shelley, Deputy Clerk, and also Ms. McGuire, that it was kind of past precedent to do that. I believe in discussion on Friday, Mr. Palmer concurred. I don't know if Mr. Cummings said anything or not, to support that, but the reason being is, I mean, I know COVID is in place right now. We can't have the normal party that we would have and everything, but I just felt it was important to recognize somebody that's been with the township for so much time publicly, so that hopefully the paper can pick up at least, his name. And he was a important part in the fabric of our community for a long time. I mean, was involved in anytime we needed anything extra in the downtown, beautification for the Northern Lights Christmas Parade, volunteering his time to pull the float, etc. Never mind his expertise when it comes to fixing vehicles and everything else. So,
And nearly 25 years service.
25 years, that's a long time. So,
Yeah, and I think like we discussed Friday, that's why it's important to have these resignations on the agenda so that we can acknowledge it, accept the resignation and acknowledge their service to the township and our appreciation for their that service. So I would like to thank Mr. Kitchen for his many years of service to the township, and he will truly be missed.
Definitely.
Yes, and you had mentioned at the work session, yes, I definitely supported recognizing Chris Kitchens. And as you pointed out, with the COVID being what it is, it's not like we could have a party, but we'd certainly like to have one in the future when that time arises. I'd like to also say that I happened to run into Chris on Saturday and spoke to him and thanked him personally. And yes, I'd like to move that we accept Chris Kitchen's resignation and very much appreciate his 25 years of service.
Support.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Cummings and support by Mr. Palmer, I believe. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurstabarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes, with regrets.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, with regrets and thanks. All right. And again, we will be working on something in the future that we can do more than just, saying this at a meeting. So moving on the agenda, we have now public comment section. So this is the time for the public to speak. You'll be given 4 minutes. You need to state your name and address. If you have a computer, you can use the raise hand function. If you're calling in, I always forget what to do there. I think you can I can unmute those people. So I guess let's start with anybody. We lost quite a few people. I mean participant wise, sorry. We went down from like 31 to 23. So, but if you're on the call or if you're on the Zoom meeting right now and you're public and you want to comment, please raise your hand. If you have a computer, if not, it should be just I only have one phone call or one phone number, I'm sorry. 739-5729. I do know who that person is. So I'm here to click. If you would like to speak, I believe you hit, is it the *9 key or something like that?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, that's Mr. Yeah,
Hello?
yeah, that would be Mr. Haley. Hi, Brian.
Hi, is it working okay?
It is. I just, yep, I didn't see a raised hand and I didn't see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But, okay, go ahead.
I'm not on the video. Yeah.
All right.
Brian Haley, Oscoda, Weir.
All right.
All right. So concerning the last meeting you had, and it was in the paper, Oscoda Township to delete social media, focus on developing websites. Okay. Now that was an addition to the agenda item, to the agenda for that night, I do believe, and that was made by Mr. Spencer, Jeremy, good guy. But this, it wasn't hashed out. I've been listening to you guys tonight. Boy, you had some great discussions. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about pumps. I learned a lot about this and that. Great discussion. So when you go to set your agenda, I'm looking at MTA guidelines, you guys. It's the result of disciplined thinking. And it should be available several days before the meeting to prepare properly. And that's what I mean about this. Now, when you're going to eliminate Facebook. So when we look at your numbers, you guys cited a little bit, bear with me. I think you got 2,037 likes on there, 2,176 follows. Now that's just for your charter township. Now you go to Old Orchard. We got 4,500 follow, 4,500 liking. And I don't understand this number. Nearly 12,000 checked in there. So you eliminate yourself from that. But let's look at our real competition. Now our goal here is to get more people to come to Oscoda. Facebook is very effective with that. You also have links that drive them to your website that you're going to be developing. So Facebook is helping you in that. Facebook is active and proactive. It gets out there. Whereas a website, you have to go to it. And even Todd Dickerson has to admit that he's going to have to find ways to try to drive people to a website. You already have that intact with Facebook. So let's look at your competition. Let's look at what Ludington's doing. Ludington, Michigan, 13,800 like it. City of, that's for their park system. The city of Ludington, 3,600, 4,100 following. Let's go to Petoskey. I lived there for a year. Great town. City of Petoskey, 1,900 liking it, 2,200 following it. Petoskey State Park, 2,100 like it, 2,200 following. Let's look at Traverse City. I lived there for a year. 15,000 following in Traverse City. Let's look at their state park. We're at about 2,000, correction, 2,000 with their state park. Kind of funny. Their state park, I think, is smaller than ours, believe it or not. Do you know in Traverse City, they have a Facebook page for their police department? They also have a Facebook page for the police department in Harbor Springs. You know, when I cite these things to you, and my beginning point was that you didn't discuss this. I don't think you discussed this at all. I'm asking you kindly to please reconsider, revisit. Now, what I'm reading in the paper, Jeremy, again, good guy, but none of this doesn't add up to reasoning. Cummings' verbiage doesn't have anything to do with reasoning. The whole goal here is to allow more people to know that we're here on the map. And when you eliminate yourself from the competition, you're not even suiting up. You're not even getting on the playing field. And it's counterproductive. You're going 180 degrees counter to the course that we want to set. We want more people here. We want to be successful. That's what you're working for. So I want more deliberation on this. I'm just being direct, okay?
Okay. All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brian. I appreciate it.
All right. Hey,
Okay.
have a good night.
You too. Okay. That was the phone call. Anybody else on logged in? I do not see any raised hands. So I don't see any. Does anybody else? I don't. So I guess I am going to move on to board comments. Do we have any board comments this evening?
I do.
Okay, Ms. McGuire, go ahead.
First of all, I forgot to ask a question about a bill in the board packet. And I asked it Friday, and I guess I was thinking maybe Mitch was going to get back to us, or somebody was going to find an answer about Black Swamp's bill with the mileage, expendable mileage. I didn't see anything in his contract that spelled that out. I don't know if anybody else had a chance to look at it, and maybe I overlooked something. But in Nancy's, our other contracted employee, her expenses are spelled out in her contract. So I'm hoping that we can look at that moving forward, since I missed it earlier tonight. The only other thing I have is Monday, February 15th is President's Day. And technically the township, well, we're closed to the public, but technically we'll be closed. Our offices will be closed because it's a holiday. But because it's the last day to pay taxes, the treasurer's office will be open to the public. Open, you can physically come in here to pay your taxes, to pay your water bill, because by law, I have to be in my office to be able to collect money. Similar to what we did between Christmas and New Year's, we were open for 3 days. We will be open Monday, February 15th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. to be able to help out the residents and if they want to pay in person. I also posted in the paper last week some ways that they could pay safely and contact free. It was in the edition last week. If anybody wants to take a look at that also, if they had any other questions, they can always call us at 739-7471.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members for board comments?
Yeah, as it relates, I mean, we've passed the consent agenda, so we've approved the payment of bills. So I think that is covered, but I think there is, we may need to revisit some items in the Mr. Dick contract. However, there is language under standards of performance, D, where it says township will not be liable to third parties for costs incurred by the consultant unless said costs have been pre-approved by the township superintendent. And then there's another clause in the contract, which is a little foolish. I don't know why this was included in here. But it says the governing law, the service provided this agreement will be performed in Iosco County, Michigan. It is acknowledged this agreement is entered into and service will be provided in Iosco County. I think it goes without saying that in order for Mr. Dickerson to do his job properly, he has to travel outside of Iosco County, possibly even outside of the state of Michigan, to meet with developers, businesses, and so on, to achieve the goals that we've contracted with him to do. So if it's necessary to put some specific language in terms of covering mileage outside of Iosco County or outside of Michigan or anywhere else, that those be covered. I think this language would cover that. And like I said, we've approved the payment of bills, so I think that should be paid. But this language in here restricting to Iosco County, I think needs to be looked at as well.
Bill, I'm in full agreement. We should, if it's not clearly spelled out, and I did read the contract and I did have a conversation with Todd, but reasonable and customary expenses in the course of doing his job should be accepted. So we definitely need to discuss that and revise it.
Okay.
And I did have one other comment. It was a little troubling to me to find out that that the township hall is closed to the public. And we do have a policy in place where people can make appointments with certain departments to meet with them for if there's something that they need that can't be done either over the phone or online. And it was troubling to me to find out that a gentleman was allowed into the building that did not have an appointment with the department that he wanted to meet with. That is not what. That's not what the policy is supposed to be, was intended to do, where you just, if somebody comes to the door and they say they want to meet with somebody, you just let them in. That's not the way this should operate. And I think, we need to set a better example. We're not, letting everybody in. The policy is you make an appointment with a department head that you want to meet with. And a lot of the things that you would meet someone for are available online. And I'm happy to hear that Ms. McGuire is going to have the treasurers open on the 15th, because a lot of people like to come in and pay their taxes in person and get the receipt signed. So that's a viable exception to that rule. But otherwise, I think the appointments need to be made with a person that they need to see, and not just be allowed to come in and then roam the township hall.
Anybody else?
I guess if we post the policy, we need to adhere by it. So that was my comment.
Is that your, do you have any other comments besides that, or just that one?
No, that was it.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Tim, did you have anything this evening?
No, thank you very much for asking.
Okay. Josh, did you have anything?
Thank you for approving the flag.
Okay. Yeah, and another committee to be on. You're
Yeah.
running out of time in a day to get everything done. All right.
Yeah,
And then
glutton for punishment.
right. And then I know, Steve, you made comments to a couple of the things that Bill said. Did you have anything besides that?
No, just for Mitch. Mitch, I received a call from the attorney that you talked to last Wednesday. She's yet to receive the RFP package from you. So if you could please get that off, I'd appreciate it.
All right. Well, I guess I do have a couple things in regard to the comment about protocol in the township hall. Obviously, by the email I sent out, it was yours truly that allowed the individual into the building. And in hindsight, I should have verified with the employee that it was okay for them to meet. That being said, he was escorted to the office. They talked. He was in the hallway, plexiglass in between, and he was wearing a mask when I left said window. We have allowed other commission members and so on into the building. Some of that could have been done outside as well. I guess I looked at this that I, maybe didn't react in the right way, but I had zoomed into a 3-hour planning commission meeting the night before, and the person standing outside the door was here to talk about action taken at that. So I apologize for not following the strict protocol. For the most part, I am here about 5 days a week and try to assist with running information in and out of the building for people all the time. So we are all doing our best to try to adhere to safe practices, as well as answer to our community and our customers in a quick manner. If people cannot get staff on the phone and leave continual messages where they don't respond, that does become frustrating for individuals. I'm not implying that the person that I let into the building had left several messages, so don't hear that. What I'm saying is it has happened in the past. So in regard to, I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit. I know we're going to be talking about our protocol and how we handle properties. I wish that we would have done that before we took some action this evening. I do feel that we just negotiated against ourselves in regard to two, however you want to call them, LOIs. We need to have our attorney review the material to see if the one that was an email was an LOI or not, but 2 offers. So basically, in my thought process, we should have probably gone back and said to both, give your best and final. Because yeah, but we can't go backwards. So that's just my thought process there. So thank you to everybody. I guess I would point out that one other thing is townships are opening around us, and so is the county to the public. So we now have restaurants that are opening, and I believe school and sports are back into full swing. So I think that we're gonna have to sit down and see if we need to make any adjustments to our overall protocol of being open to the public. But those are just my thoughts. So, I guess I will take a motion to adjourn.
I had a couple of comments.
Oh, I forgot to ask you, didn't I? Sorry, Jerry.
I'll make it quick. I know that Mr. Haley had some concerns about the social media and our township government's involvement with that. And I think I'm going to have to reach out and speak with him directly. We kind of did go over some of the things, but just to rehash, I mean, I don't know if the township ever, who at the township approved agreeing to the end user licensing agreement that Facebook and a lot of these other websites have. I don't know if our township attorneys have ever reviewed any of that material, but I can tell you from my experience with Facebook that anything that we put up there, we do not have control over. We are a government entity, and the information that we put out, we absolutely need to have control over because we're required to for FOIA purposes, et cetera, and we do not. Facebook doesn't allow for that. And I appreciate that there's plenty of other people out there that are using Facebook and plenty of other entities that are using Facebook at their own peril, whichever the case may be. But the but the fact is that the way I see Facebook is that it's more of a personal thing for you as the individual to go share your photos of Oscoda and to go talk to all of your friends and acquaintances about what happened and what you did in Oscoda and how awesome it was and the beauty that surrounds us. And I don't think that it's our responsibility as the government to go and talk about those things on a platform over which we have no control. To that end, that's why why we're looking at our own .gov website that can offer plenty of similar services that would be even more direct, chat features that we can chat directly with the township official if need be, especially during these COVID times. And all of those tools can be built into our upcoming website. And we have control over the content. We archive the content. If someone FOIAs information that has to do with that content, we can provide it without asking a third party to give us information. And we don't have any control over who deletes information. If they delete their post or something else that's on Facebook, we can't stop that in the way that it's set. And that provides a lot of legal issues for me. And that's one of the reasons that I pushed for that. And Mr. Haley, if you're available, I would like, I'll try to give you a jingle. I got your phone number here. And I'd like to talk with you more in detail about that, because maybe we were too quick. And as a government, as a person that's representing the people, if the people want to talk more about it, then we will.
All right, thanks, Jeremy.
You betcha.
Okay, all right. With that, I'll have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, thanks. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.